I'm going to ask questions throughout this first section, and I want to get to know not only you guys, but I want to get to know the live audience out there as well, or the internet audience as well. So certainly in the chat room or via Twitter, go ahead and respond to some of these questions, and then if you guys could farm those responses back to me, that'd be great. So the first thing I need to understand about you guys is how many images you take and how long it takes you to do things. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. So most of you in studio are shooting portraits, or in Carlos's case, very rarely does a human enter into his photographs, the way Carlos likes it. You shoot weddings. Do the rest of you only shoot portraits? You shoot some weddings? Second shooting weddings. Do you ever have to edit the images? Not yet, but eventually you will. Do you ever shoot weddings? Or?
I will be second shooting this summer, and I'll be editing them.
Okay. So I mostly shoot weddings. And because weddings is such a high volume photography gig, you end up with a lot of images, and most wedding photographers that I find are just spending weeks upon weeks doing their editing. And it doesn't have to be that way. But if you're the type that's shooting portraits, or if you're shooting travel photography, whatever it is you're shooting, you're going to have a lot of images. And it's always been my mantra to shoot to get the real shot. A lot of people will hold back on their shooting because they're afraid of post-production. Because they're afraid they're going to have to look through all those images that they're taking, so they're like, I'm going to really slow down my shots. I'm going to wait for the shot and only take the one. But in reality, the best way to get the best photographs is to take a lot of images. Now, that doesn't mean that you rapid fire like a machine gun and just kind of spray the room and go home and see what you caught. But it does mean that you take as many pictures as possible to hedge your bets, especially when you're dealing with documentary type work. So if you're dealing with portraits nowadays are much more documentary than there are portraiture. Very rarely do we go and sit someone and pose them and do, turn your cheek this way and look that way. We don't do that often anymore. And those who do are kind of dinosaur photographers, and most people don't do that. It's more on location, it's real moments, it's real expressions, and that's all documentary work. So the problem is that when you shoot documentary, the only way to get the best shot is to shoot a lot. Hedge your bets against the random eyes closed, and you just... And the thing about photography, especially SLR photography, is that you never actually see the picture you take. So anytime you've snapped a shutter, the mirror is in your way. And so you can't see the photograph you just took unless you look at the back screen, and then you're missing whatever's going on in front of you. And so a good photographer is going to photograph to get the shot. And if that means taking 50 shots, then he'll take 50 shots, rather than just waiting and hoping to get the right moment at the right time. So when I shoot, I kind of sneak up on the photograph. So as I see what we call a pregnant moment, it's a moment that's about to give birth, and you know that there is a photograph waiting to happen, and so you kind of sneak up on it, and you take a picture from a long way away, and then you move a little closer and take another picture, and then move a little closer and take another picture. So you're doing that because you don't know if the moment's going to disintegrate in front of you. It's building up, and then it could just fall apart. And so you're taking pictures all the way up to it. You may not even be in the right position to take the photograph for a minute. You're sneaking into the situation, or you're running after the situation, and you just don't know if that's actually going to occur. So I'm actually going to, I think I have a photograph here that is a perfect example of that. Well, here's a great example of this. So that didn't happen a lot, right? It wasn't happening all the time. It was just she's getting the shoe on, and I'm taking pictures, and I probably took 3 or 4 pictures before this picture thinking, okay, when's this going to come into the right moment. And then, because she had to get in there and try and buckle something, the dress comes over, and then that's when I take it, right? So it's a great moment, but it's only great because I snuck up on it and I was taking pictures on the way to it. And then at one point I'm thinking, well, maybe this will get better, right? So I keep photographing, and then it falls apart and she gets out from under the dress and then the moment's gone, right? But you don't get moments like that just by sitting and then waiting and then taking one shot and then moving away. So the reason I talk about this is because I want you to understand that I will never tell you to slow down on your shooting. I'm always going to tell you, shoot more. Hedge your bets more. That's the way I shoot. And I think that's the right way to shoot documentary work. And you should never slow down because you're afraid of your post-processing, because we can get you through the post-processing and it shouldn't take you very much time to get through it. We can speed you through that. But the most important thing is to get the shot. Because if you don't get the shot, you might as well not do the post-production. Okay? All right. So the question then to you is, if you were to shoot a wedding or a number of events that would equal the same number as a wedding, let's say, how many of you shoot 2,000 to 3,000 images in a wedding? Is that a doable number for you? Okay. So, and that's on your own, or is that with an assistant? On your own. Or with an assistant? Yeah. Okay, so 3,000 total would be a decent wedding for you with an assistant shooting as well. Okay. So that's a pretty good number. 3,000 is a good number for 6 hours of a wedding or something like that. I'll shoot between 3,000 and 5,000 images on a wedding. And that's usually between 5 and 8 hours. Just kind of depends on how many people I have shooting. That's me and 2 assistants usually. Okay? So let's take that number 3,000. If you were to post-process 3,000 images, once they're in your computer and you're going to select them and adjust them and get them out the door to the client, how long does that take you? Answers. How long does it take you to do a 3,000 image wedding and get those things down to, say, 500 images and out the door to the client? What's that post-processing time like for you? 2 long days. Like, be more specific. How many days? Or is it, can you say it in hours? Do you know how many hours it would take you?
Oh, I mean, I guess I'm pretty slow, but I would say probably a good 6-7 hours for me to narrow it down to something that I want to show the clients. And that's just
selecting?
That's just selecting and getting them basic crop, basic color correction. That's not like do any work to it. That's just basic enough that I can...
that you can let the client peek?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have Hans 3D who says, usually for 2,000 images, I take about 50 hours.
This is Han?
Hans 3D.
Hans 3D, we're going to change your life.
Change your life.
Change your life.
We have Life by Rebecca says, it is about 12 hours total for me to do all post-production on 3,000 images.
Okay, we can cut that in half.
And Kenga Mingo, probably 20 hours.
Okay, so those of you who are in the stratosphere of 10 and 20 and 30 and 50 hours, that's, you don't need to be doing that. You can change that very easily. And I'm going to give you rules throughout the day that'll change that, okay? So that's good. All right. Well, that's helpful for me to understand. So the first thing that you have to do when it comes to post-production is it starts at the very core, which is your image naming, your file structures. How clean is your work environment inside the computer? And most people will probably say, not very clean. In fact, I can tell based on someone's desktop how their life is going. Right? If it's all cluttered and there's like 50 things on there, your life isn't going very well. But if it's clean and all you see are disk drives, you see that? So on my desktop, I've got 2 disk drives. I've got a working drive and a portfolio drive. The actual computer hard drive is not being shown on this desktop, so that's its own thing. And then you'll notice down here, I've just got 3 little shortcuts that we're using to access things that are on the computer. But that's the state of life. clean, easygoing, relaxed. When you get this thing cluttered, two things happen. Number one, it's time to see the shrink. And number two, it slows your computer down. Does everybody know that? If you have stuff on your desktop, say you put 1 gigabyte worth of photos on your desktop, that's 1 gigabyte that your computer can't use of RAM and scratch disk space. So to those people who are like, oh, Lightroom's so slow, Lightroom's so slow, Lightroom is an intense RAM hog. It needs as much RAM as you can put in your computer. And RAM's not very expensive, so you can load a computer up with RAM pretty cheaply, a couple $100, and you can take whatever you have and load it up fully. So as much RAM as you can have in your computer is great, and as much scratch disk space. Scratch disk space is used when there's not enough RAM to deal with a specific thing that the computer wants to do. It needs a little place on the hard drive to store files really quickly before it moves them somewhere else, that kind of stuff. So if you have lots of RAM and lots of scratch disk space, that means you need a little empty space on your hard drive. So if you could give it 100 gigabytes of scratch disk space, it would be very happy. Lightroom will work very well. But if you put gigabytes worth of stuff on your desktop, your computer assumes that you want to use it right now. And so then it starts allocating space from the RAM and the scratch disk, and so then you slow down. So if you want to speed up your computer immediately, just look at your desktop. If it's cluttered, that's probably one of the reasons it's really slow. Clean that desktop off. The only thing that I'll have on my desktop is disks and shortcuts, because shortcuts don't cost anything. Okay? So clean up that environment.